Seth Bridges!
I love that intro. All right, here I am. It's me talking about something. How's everybody doing today, or this afternoon, or this evening, or whatever it is when in your listen time? So I'm here today. I'm going to talk about some stuff, and we're going to talk about some stuff that's on my brain. And one of those things that's on my brain right now is the table. So the table is an interesting thing. It's a thing that sits in the middle of a room surrounded by chairs, and sometimes people sit at it and sometimes people don't. But what's interesting about the table is that sometimes it's a desk for your homework, sometimes it's a desk for your work, sometimes it's a place to stop and drink some coffee, and other times it's a place to read the news and find out what you can do today due to COVID. Sometimes it's a moment in time that you can stare across with your cup of coffee, stare into your wife's eyes, and look at her and remember why you've been married for 30 years because of her beauty. And hopefully she's on the other side going, yeah, that's why I was married for 30 years, because of his beauty. And sometimes it's a moment where you get to meet your kids again at Christmas. You get to see your aunts and your uncles and your grandmas and your grandpas, and all these people come around and gather and hang around the table. The table is an interesting thing, because at the table you can drink water. At the table you can drink coffee. If you're one of those kinds, you can drink a beer, and you can have a glass of margarita. I used to do that, so hey, I can say it. And you can do tons of stuff at the table. You can play cards games, you can play the game of life, you can get in fights and arguments over Monopoly, you can do all kinds of things at the table, because the table is a fascinating thing. And right now, in this midst of COVID-19 epidemic, pandemic, thingamajigger, whatever it is, it's a time that you can gather with your family again. The table has really broken down over the many years that the table has always existed inside everybody's houses. Most of us have a dining room in some place like that, and we call it, that's our formal dining room. Because where we actually eat and where we actually commune is at the TV. That's where we actually spend most of our time. and I think it's actually kind of sad. I think it's been kind of neat during this time frame. We've sat at the table more often than we have in a long time, because we're all home. We're all doing something. And even if you're working, you can come home, you can take a moment, because everybody else will be home when you get home, and you can sit down at the table and enjoy your family. You can spark up conversation. You can take everybody's cell phones away for half an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, and just chill and relax at the table and remember why you're a family. You can look at your kids' eyes and say, I'm so grateful that you've grown up in such a certain way. Or you can look at them and go, hey, these might be some adjustments you want to make. And it all comes across nicely at the table, because everybody wants to be friendly while we're sitting at the table. I've always found that kind of interesting. During Christmas time and Thanksgiving, people show up that you may not even like. And guess where you gather? At the table, and you're all friendly with each other. I think it's kind of neat. I believe that Jesus is asking us to come and dine with him, to sit with him at the table, and to have him be a part of our lives, and to remember who he is, especially during this time, because he is more than a conqueror. He's the one that's going to get us through all this. He's the one that's going to take us from place to place, from glory to glory, or however you want to say it. And I really think that God's the one that needs to be at the table more than anybody else. We need to sit at the table with him. I think Jesus is asking us to come and dine with him. He's saying to us that I want you to sup with me. When we're asked to come to the table, it is a time of rejoicing and love. We sit around the table and talk about our day and our lives. We sit with each other in harmony and put away our past aggression towards each other. We spend time in love and adoration towards each other when we come to the table. We see people that we might not have seen for years, and we see past anything that kept us apart, and just spend time when we're at the table. And I think that's something that we have to get back to. We have to get back to that tradition of sitting at the table. In Luke 14:23, Jesus is talking a parable, and in this particular scripture, it says this. It says, then the master said to his servant, go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. And I know that we are waiting for a time that the house can be filled again, but it is full right now with your love and your family and the people that you can be with. Take advantage of this time. This is the time to sit down and be able to actually rejoice with each other and spend time with each other. This is a time where we can actually, instead of causing strife with each other, that's that moment of, oh, we get stressed all day because we're too close to each other and this and that. And I know that kind of bugs people. But you have to take that time where you can sit down with each other and go, hey, man, sorry about me bumping into you, or sorry about me eating your breakfast this morning, or sorry about me stealing that sausage off your plate, or as I walked by to watch TV, or whatever caused an issue. You know, I didn't get the right ice cream when I went to the grocery store, or whatever's happening. Just, you have to kind of go, okay, I can handle this and I can do this. And a great place to do that is at the table. The table is an important place, a tradition that is long disappearing in our culture. When I was young, we had to come in before the streetlights were out. I know some of you guys know that. We would come into the house after a long day of playing, and we would get washed up. Make sure to use soap. That was always shouted out across the room because, you know, we had white towels, right? And sit at the table. My family would play games that would get us in conversation, but it was also a time where we could discuss our day and enjoy time together. And I miss that. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people from my generation or beyond miss it too, because really, what do we do now? We sit on our phones, we sit in front of Netflix and Prime and whatever else is available on TV, cable, and you know whatnot. And really, I think we have to get back to a place where we can say, guess what I'm doing tonight? Well, what you doing tonight? I'm going to sit at the table. With who? Why? Why would you do that? Because I'm going to enjoy my family. I'm going to spend time with the people who I'm with at home and actually enjoy the presence of everybody around me. You know, I think it's funny that Jesus sat at the table, and when he sat at the table, he sat down with sinners and tax collectors and all these kinds of people that weren't the normal. And I love non-normal people. They just make me so joyous because, you know, people that are different stand out. And I've always planned to not be normal in my life, and I've always tried to be 100% me and not whoever somebody else said I should be. So I probably would have been one of those guys sitting at the table that the Pharisees got mad at Jesus for. You know, he saw a man, this is Matthew in chapter 9, verse 9, somewhere around there. And Jesus passed on from here. He saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax office, and he said to him, follow me. So he arose and followed him. What a great thing to do. If Jesus walks by and says, follow me, I suggest you get up and follow him. Now it happened, as Jesus sat at the table in the house, that behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. There was something in Jesus that caused people to come and sit with him. And it was probably one of those things like love. It was probably one of those things like forgiveness. It was probably one of those things like purity, where we're drawn to those things, but we always try to stay away from them. And the table draws people together. One of our holidays, the holiday that me and my wife do every year, is Easter, which was very rough this year because it was pretty empty. And normally we have about 40 some people at our house, and we have to find places to sit because my house isn't all that big. And so we'd have to find places to sit, but we always find a way to gather just before we eat and pray. I think that's cool. You know, take an opportunity while you're in this situation to remember family, to remember kids, to remember conversations. And, you know, if you do have a household full of people, it's been me and my wife, and we had 4 daughters, you know, so we always had a lot of people in the house with friends and everybody else that came by. And sometimes they would stay and eat, sometimes they wouldn't, but we always had a lot of people floating around. And still to this day, it's me, my wife, my 3rd daughter's here with my 3 grandchildren. And we like to take an opportunity to sit around the table. And I think maybe you should take an opportunity, even if it's just you and a moment of silence with your cup of coffee and your chicken breast or your hamburger patty or whatever it is that you're eating, and take a moment to just relax. Take a moment to just breathe in and breathe out. And if you're married, take a moment to stare into your wife's eyes again across the table. And if your kids are there, take a moment to find out what's going on in their lives and during their day. And if you have a whole lot of people after dinner, play a game. Break out the old school board game. Put the phones away for a little bit. Enjoy your time at the table. So that's it. That's all I got to say. Spend time at the table with your family. Spend time at the table with friends. And especially when we get freed up to gather, spend time at the table. Go to church, gather with friends, do that as the time allows us to do that. And remember what it's like to love on one another and enjoy each other's presence. But in the meantime, with your family and friends that are able to sit around the table, maybe we should, and just enjoy a moment in time around the table. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me for this past 10, 11 minutes or whatever it's been, and remind you to go to church on Sunday, even if it's on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or wherever you're enjoying church right now. And just thank you for listening and watching, and have a wonderful weekend. Right on, right on.